My name is Jake Kazdal. I'm a longtime game developer. Brian asked me to kind of be a part of this, and I'm happy to talk with him. Brian and I have kind of known each other for a while. We both have very similar sort of backgrounds, so I kind of want to just quickly talk about who I am, where I come from, what I've been doing, and some of the stuff I've learned, because it's been a pretty exciting journey. I started in games when I was 16 years old. I was lucky enough to grow up in Woodinville, Washington, which is right next to Redmond, which is where Nintendo is. And as soon as I turned 16, I think the day I turned 16, I got my job at Nintendo as a game counselor. It was during the NES days, and it was the greatest job ever, right? I was a 16-year-old kid. I had no expenses. I was making like $9 or $10 an hour. I was playing all the, the latest video games. We had to play games every week, so I had like, stacks of games that I was going through. I mean, I played almost every NES game, probably not all of them, but that led to, I think I took off from there for a while. It led to a job at Enix during the SNES days, where my first game that I had my name in the credits was Illusion of Gaia by Enix back in the day, by Quintet. Yeah, good game. So those guys were awesome. ActRaiser on Super Famicom like blew my brains out, and that's why I had to go work there. That led to going to art school to kind of decide that I want to make games. I actually graduated from Vancouver Film School here in 1996 on a Friday afternoon in May, and I started working at a AAA studio on the next Monday morning. So I've been doing this for about 17 years, which is pretty terrifying to think about. After that, I worked at a big AAA studio in Seattle for a while. After that, I was lucky enough to get a job with my hero, Tetsuya Mizuguchi, in Tokyo, Japan, at Sega, where I worked on Space Channel 5 and Rez and a couple other things that didn't quite make it to see the light of day, unfortunately. I should have brought some stuff. I actually have some, damn it. Anyways, that was an amazing experience. I was a concept artist and animator working with 50 people who didn't speak English, and it turned out surprisingly well. I didn't speak any Japanese when I got there, but I do now, so it all worked out great. After that, I sort of needed some change of air. I ended up at Art Center in Pasadena, went back to school, did some concept design and stuff like that. Ended up at a job at EA, working with Steven Spielberg on the LMNO project, doing concept art and sort of game design. We had a very similar prototype to a little game called Mirror's Edge, which you may have heard of, which was ahead of us by a good 6 to 8 months, and they were basically doing the exact same thing. So that was kind of a big bummer. We didn't end up shipping the game. Moved on, I was at Zombie in Seattle for a while, art directing on the Blacklight series, and at that point I'd been doing this kind of gritty, high-end sci-fi concept art for years, and I wanted to do something totally different. I wanted to get back to my roots as sort of a, I love cartoony, goofy pop design, culture, stuff like that. So I started my own studio in the summer of 2009, which is the same month I had my first child, so life has been pretty much like nonstop ever since. Just to kind of give you an idea of the kind of stuff we're doing now, I got a quick video here. Am I gonna have to move this down?
No, just keep going, and I'll jump in when you want me to.
I just want to be able to hear the video. I'm not sure if this thing's hooked up. This is a trailer. Our first game that we just launched in January, it's called Skulls of the Shogun. It's a tactical turn-based strategy game that's published by Microsoft Studios. It came out on Xbox, Windows 8, and Windows Phone, and it was the first cross-platform game for Microsoft Studios, and the core team was really 2 engineers and me, and it was murder, but we're still standing, so we're going to talk about that again in a bit. Is this thing turned up?
Oh,
No.
oh, sorry.
Hold on a second. I don't know if you can see the cameo in here, but I'm proud to have been the bad guy in this video. Can I just pull this thing down?
Let's we'll tilt it.
Indie. Fully indie, baby.
Perfect. Ah,
Okay, so this video was done over the course of a couple weeks. It was our producer, who's spent 10 years at Square Enix in Tokyo being a localization expert, totally wasting his time, because as soon as I hired him, he started doing stuff like this for us, and I was like, oh my god, so this is what we do now.
Unit Charlie Bravo, you are clear to engage. Yeah, let's do it! Yeah, did it!
This game's boring.
Who wants to join my undead army? Then die! Shogun, a fast-paced, turn-based strategy game for Xbox Live Arcade, Windows 8, Surface, and Windows Phone. Summon gods, cause chaos, and take on the world with cross-platform multiplayer. Skulls of the Shogun.
Who wants cookies?
So yeah, that's what we do. It's been a crazy experience. I mean, I've been making games, like I said, since '96, really heavily in production. And the last 4 years, since starting my own independent studio, I've learned, I mean, we were talking about this earlier, probably twice as much as I learned over the rest of my entire career. I mean, when you go from being a staff artist or, a concept artist, a small fragment of a team, to being like, doing every single job there is. I'm not as crazy as this guy, but like, it was bad. It was close. There was 3 of us. And we had all worked together at EA for a couple of years on the Spielberg project, and that kind of faded. We kind of went our separate ways. I worked at Command & Conquer 4 for a while, and ended up leaving and moving back to Seattle to have the kid, because I'm from Seattle, and the family support unit was up there. But we just wanted to do what we'd had so many projects that had been big and had been canceled, and we wanted to just do the game that we wanted to do, and we'd been doing game stuff for a long time, and we were like, we could probably just make a game. It was kind of before the indie wave kind of really hit. It was really right about 4 years ago that we started, and going from being a production artist to a producer and a manager, and the lead designer and the lead artist and the lead PR, and doing all the business development and getting a lawyer, and figuring out how to get a domain, and everything that we did, it was just like so much work. We're up to 7. There's Zach Aikman's in the audience here. He's going to join us full time starting on Monday, so we'll be up to 7 full-time guys. We're deep into the new project now, and yeah, I don't even know where to start, so I want to open up the floor to questions. I know there's a lot of AAA developers in Vancouver that, kind of, it's been tough for the big studios, so I'm sure there's a lot of guys in a very similar boat to where I was not long ago, wanting to sort of take your expertise and all the things you've learned and move into the indie sphere. I mean, there's never been a better time to be an indie now. I mean, Sony's changing gears, and Nintendo's changing gears. It's just never been easier to kind of you get the right skill sets. You've got these middleware engine stuff. We're using Unity. We love it. It's saving us so much time and effort on not just like recreating the wheel. We're spending all of our effort on focusing on making an awesome new video game that's the coolest thing that we've ever seen. And so, that's the most thrilling thing in the world, pretty much. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to kind of open it up to questions and see if anyone's got any concerns or anything we can help to.
So okay, we've got a question.
Are you open to internships?
Possibly. We're located in Seattle, downtown. We've got a big studio. We live in a crazy old warehouse. There's no rats that I can see, but we do try to put the food away safely. Yeah, if you want to, contact me afterwards. I have my, let me put my contact information back up on screen here. So this is me. If there's no other questions, I mean, Brian and I we got a couple there.
Just considering where you're at and what you've gotten done, how old are you?
I'll be 40 this year.
Oh, you don't look it, man.
Thanks. Well, I had, all this gray hair was all brown a couple years ago. So I decided to have the brilliant idea of having started an indie studio and have 2 children at the same time. Yeah, that was like one of the smoothest things I've ever done. But I have learned about this thing called responsibility, and it has aged me. So, yes.
There's some questions over here.
Okay.
Over here.
So is there any advice you give for an indie team who decides to start the project? What kind of legal stuff should we be thinking of? What would we have to take care of to get our project legal so we're not stepping on any toes?
I guess, this is a good question. I didn't know anything about this at the time. We did get a good game lawyer. We used Tom Buscalia, who's also based in Seattle, who Brian uses too. He's the indie, kind of the game lawyer. He's crazy. He's this old dude. He's out of control, and he loves video games, and he is an absolute bulldog. Like, having him along for our negotiation meetings with Microsoft and just like reading over all the contracts and kind of, that's his world. He understands all that stuff. We knew nothing about this whole world of this stuff. And so having him on board just kind of from the beginning, I buy 10-hour chunks of time from him. And yes, it's expensive, but it's also completely priceless, and it just gets you out of all kinds of hot water. We did look into securing the name of the game. We've got our webpage. Just kind of having him on board with all the discussion stuff that we were doing with publishers while we were looking for stuff, it made a world of difference. And then when we actually sat down to have our meetings and hammer through some of the details, he was just priceless. I mean, I was like, I'm so nice. I don't want to like piss anybody off, but like I'm angry. And so he's just sitting there next to me, just barking on my behalf, and I can be like the good cop. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, a thing I can say about him as well, and this just goes in general, but he had done, I think at the time when I started working with him, it was at least a dozen, maybe 20 or something XBLA deals. And so he had seen the contract through and through, how it evolved, what could budge, and so forth. And so it's really good to get someone with experience, because that is worth way more than whatever you're paying him per hour, is just the previous experience that he's done in that specific area.
It's priceless.
Yeah.
Possibly. I would look for a note.
Well, yeah, he's the, if you just Google the game attorney, he'll come up. Yeah. He's also been really good with, he's done a lot of talks at GDC and for the IGDA, which is also really cool.
I think he heads the IGDA, or he heads the Seattle IGDA, or?
Yeah, maybe.
Something like that.
He's really good in the community, and he's done a lot of great talks, which you can find for free online and get a whole bunch of free advice without even paying him, so that's pretty cool.
Good, who's next? All right, how are we here?
So for a lot of us who are like just starting out things and wanting to go to the scene, so the price of the that is usually the serious hard for us. So what did you guys do to acquire enough money for everybody to start out deals here?
Good question, and I have a good answer. We kept our jobs while we got our vertical slice going. Shane's talk about the shell raiser and about having that early prototype up and playable before you kind of jump into all your production of adding content and stuff was really key. For us, we got a playable demo up while having full-time jobs. It was just one level. It was just a couple characters, but we brought it to a point of polish, both for ourselves internally to understand what the game was, but also so that it was immediately presentable, and we were able to start talking to publishers. We were able to start talking to press, and they're playing it, and they're going, wow, this looks almost done. We're like, actually, we have barely started. Like, we have the core here, but there are no other levels. There is no story yet. Like, that stuff is all secondary to the core of the experience, like what you can show somebody. And you need to understand what it is yourself, too. So, we went as long as possible, working part-time, kind of nights and evenings. I mean, I had just had a kid. My wife was not letting me out of the house, so I had a bunch of spare time. It worked out. And we finally got it to the point where we were able to secure some angel funding based on the prototype, and then that led into a deal with Microsoft. So at that point, once we got the cash, we actually quit our jobs. So one thing I did right.
So you're a team with a lot of industry experience, a lot of veterans, a lot of like collective experience in different areas. What were the things about going indie that most surprised you, given that?
Well, remember that we were highly trained individuals with highly defined skill sets, like that were very narrow, right? I was a concept artist and an animator. Like, I love gameplay and I was involved in gameplay design, but like that was my sphere of influence and knowledge. And so when you have a company, you are leading a studio, you've got to make all kinds of decisions. You've got to be worried about budgets. And, I highly recommend getting a really intelligent producer, someone who could just sort of be the detail guy. Like, I'm Mr. Right Brain Nutcase, creative guy over here, like waving my hands, screaming at people. I need someone like really intelligent and slow to come back behind after me and be like, hey, we need to be hitting this, we need to be hitting this. It's stunning the amount of work it is. I mean, really just how much I work all the time. Even though I've got kids, like I spend at least 3 nights a week, basically till midnight working all night at the studio. And there's just so much periphery stuff that whoever's in charge has to deal with. It's not making games. Like, that's the boomer part. Like, I'm trying to find someone to kind of come in and take care of the biz stuff so I can spend more effort on the energy of actually creating the games, because I'm the design lead, I'm the art lead, and there's a lot of, that's where my passion is. That's why I'm doing this, is because I love making games. I don't want to be managing, budgets and paying salaries and paying for rent and getting insurance for the studio and like all this stuff. So if I would invest in one person as a small team, I would find someone that was like that guy, the detail guy, that was willing to sort of take all that stuff off your plate and let you stay doing what you're good at doing.
Yeah, I completely agree with this, and I experienced the same thing. I was blown away by just how much work, as I've spoken at Full Indie before, how much non-development work there is. And especially for me, underestimating it, thinking I'm just one guy, I'm doing it on my own schedule, I'm doing all this work, it should be fine. But you'd be amazed how much paperwork and, insurance for your company, insurance for your office, and all these things that you have to deal with. And when I was working, I also, like Jake, was working on my own part-time while working at other studios, and that was really smart, and I really recommend that, and I also saved up and for many years, and that was what kickstarted me. But when I quit my job to go full-time, I expected, wow, 9 more hours a day, I'm going to get to work on my game. But then that was when I didn't have a steady paycheck. I didn't have the cushion of that. And now I had to worry about making money, shipping the game, and all of that. And that ended up taking up more than 9 hours of the day, just making sure that that was on track.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I could spend all day, every day, just dealing with crap that needs to be done that has nothing to do with being creative and working on the game. So I'm trying to get people to help me out more and more. Like, we've got a bunch of part-time people who come in, like, you know, once or twice a week and just like, hey, is there anything I can do for you to take it off your plate? I'm like, yes, this. All right, now I get to draw for an hour. Awesome. So, yeah. Yeah, that was, yeah, I didn't mention that. The first year and a half, really, I spent working out of my bedroom, and the other two guys both lived in Los Angeles. And it was a lot of Skype. I, unfortunately, am completely technologically illiterate. I will break any computer I touch, and I don't understand anything about coding. So being the lead of the project and not being able to function kind of without a programmer at some point to kind of, you know, we rolled all our own tools, which was stupid. I'll get into that again, but I would never do that again. We rolled our own animations, you know, tool. We rolled our own engine tool. We wrote our own, you know, level editor. Like, we did all our own code. And so we were on Skype, like, pretty much all the time. I mean, like, lots of emails and stuff, too. And we used another one called VC, where they could actually come into my computer and, like, take it over, hijack it, and unfuck everything that I had broken, which worked great. I mean, that was really necessary. Unfortunately, Barut, who's the lead engineer, he has a really shitty internet connection for whatever reason. Even though he paid for, like, the highest level Comcast he could get, it didn't cut out. So, or it did cut out all the time, I should say. It didn't cut it. So that was unfortunate, but you know, we tried to make regular, like, at least daily meetings. We would, whenever we were doing design stuff, we would be like, all right, let's just block out a couple hours, and we'd sit there, the three of us, we'd have three-way Skype going. Or Ben would go over to Barut's house. They both live in Venice Beach, so the three of us could kind of be a little bit more immediate. And it was, you know, it's difficult. I mean, starting an indie studio and starting a project on a good day under a perfect situation is nearly impossible. So doing it remotely, I wouldn't recommend it. And, you know, next game, I'm not doing that again. Like, I'm having everybody in-house where I can look around and be on top of everything. We've scaled up a bit now, and, like, we've kind of been through the process once, so I feel like we know what we're doing better. And even that, again, is massively challenging. But we just spent, you know, you had to have a certain amount of patience and, you know, being not quite, like, we were all really kind of burned out from the AAA lifestyle, so we would sleep in, and we kind of worked the hours we wanted to, which tended to be sort of later in the day. But we didn't find enough time to do a lot of crossover, and we were just, yeah, constantly virtually meeting, so. The Angel actually was my father. He sold the building that we were working in and had a bunch of investment opportunities that fell apart. And he was wondering what to do with his money, and I begged him. And I showed him what I was doing, and I, you know, got some people to kind of speak on my behalf. And he's been a lifelong entrepreneur and really wanted me to do something, you know, like that. And so, I mean, he obviously took a big chunk, but he gave us enough cash to get the project up to a full prototype level where we were able to get it picked up by Microsoft. So it worked out. I mean, I was lucky that I had him. You know, honestly, I don't know what we would have done without that. We would have had to stay on our, you know, our other jobs longer, or, you know, save more money on the side, and kind of jumped at a point where we had more stuff saved up. You know, maybe brought the scope of the game down. I mean, we thought this was going to be a 6-month iPhone game when we started, and Barut, the lead engineer, turns out he hates Macs. He's a total Windows guy. He's like, after a week, he's like, fuck this, I'm not doing it. I was like, what? He's like, this sucks, I'm not doing it. He's like, I love X and A, let's do an Xbox game. I'm like, oh, I love Xbox, all right, sure. So we just started, and it just kind of grew, and, you know, 3.5 years later, we shipped a game, and, you know, yeah, dude, it's been a crazy, crazy 3.5 years. So, all right, any other questions?
Some in the back.
Oh, there is?
Over here.
Okay.
Sorry.
So marketing's been a big talk, and you guys just released also the Shogun, so, and you specifically you went through Microsoft, so easier, harder, better, different?
I kind of felt this way going in, that I didn't want to depend on anybody to be doing that stuff. I wanted to make sure that all our bases were covered, and at the very least, I was going to fight like hell to market the game myself, like on top of whatever support we would eventually get. So we were really active in trade shows. We've been to I think 13 trade shows now. I mean, anime conventions, classic gaming conventions, 5 PAXs in a row. We were at TGS, we weren't on the floor, but we were, schmoozing and doing stuff. Like the E3s, we got selected by IndieCade one year. We got an E3 booth at IndieCade, which was amazing. We were at the Microsoft booth last year for E3. We hired a kind of PR specialist right at the end for the last couple of months who had worked in press for years and years, and he knew everybody, and he was fresh, and he wasn't all burned out and pissed off, and he was able to come in and kind of scope us an entire marketing plan and set up competitions, and really we revamped our entire website. We got our 17-bit Twitter feed going. Tons of interviews with magazines, and we got Microsoft to kind of help us pay for a trip to New York where we kind of reached out. We had a really good, we had good luck with the IGN guys and the Kotakus, a lot of the really traditional games media, but we wanted to kind of go outside of that bubble. And so we spent a week in New York meeting with kind of smaller places, a lot of tech magazines, stuff like that. Did a lot of interviews, Game Informer is a huge magazine, and I didn't really know. I knew a couple of guys there kind of a little bit, but I was looking at the price of what it would cost to have an ad in a magazine, and it was a couple $1,000 at a very minimum. And so I was I could fly out there, show them the game, stay in a hotel, everything for under $1,000, and if they feature us at all, that's a huge win, I reckon. So I went out there, and they did. They loved it, and they gave us 2 pages, and it was Game Informer. It's literally, I think, one of the biggest magazines in America. And so that cost me $700, and all of a sudden we had crazy coverage. So it was just creating those contacts and really just being on people all the time. And people got tired of it at PAX. I mean, someone earlier was speaking about the kind of fatigue, and it's true. We showed it way too early, thinking we were going to ship way sooner. We ended up shipping 2 years later than we ever thought we were going to. And at that time, it was getting harder and harder to sort of pick up interest in the press because everyone had seen it 20 times. They'd already played it at PAX 4 times. Luckily, some of the cross-platform stuff came on later in the game, and so being able to show people playing on phone versus the Windows 8 versus the Xbox, that picked up some stuff too. But yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I can't see.
What do you think about Windows 8 and Windows Phone as platforms?
How do I answer this tactfully? They're limited markets as of yet. They probably have potential, but it's been slow going so far. We sold relatively very well on those platforms, but relatively, yeah. I can kind of see. I can't. If you guys have a question, maybe wave your hand a bit. Over here? No? Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, I don't know.
All right.
I think that's, actually we're right at time anyway, so.
All right, cool.
Cool. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you, guys.